A Navy officer lost their job for secretly installing internet on a warship. Topless medical exams in Japanese schools is making people angry. And a man stuck a 2-foot eel up his rear and had to get surgery. These are the weird stories for Wednesday on Weird AF News, the only daily weird news podcast hosted by a guy inside a closet. A Navy personnel is demoted after sneaking a satellite dish onto a warship in order to get a little bit of internet. Well, you know, it's lonely on that ship. You need to be able to tap into the dating apps, I'd imagine. And you know, when you're wearing a uniform and your dating app pics, you know, you get a lot of hits. So you need that dating app wherever you're going. Unfortunately, when you bring internet on a warship, I'd imagine you're going to give away your location, huh? I'd imagine. What is it? What do they say? Loose lips sink ships. Loose tweets sink military fleets. All right, that was stupid, but we're just working with what we got here, guys. Okay, time for some details. We have a U.S. Navy chief who wanted the internet so badly, so she and other enlisted officers could scroll social media, check sports scores, and watch movies while deployed. Well, you know, I mean, and then also there's fantasy football drafts the last few weeks, I'd imagine. And if I'm on a U.S. Navy shift, I'm not going to miss my draft. You can't leave your fantasy draft up to auto draft. You're going to have such a crappy team. You really got to be on top of it yourself. Also, you know, there's the OnlyFans, although in this instance, I'm sure it's, they call it Only Fleets. Come on, guys, Only Fleets. Maybe she's showing her feets on Only Fleets. It's Only Fleets. Only Fleets? All right, I'm in a little bit of some rare form here, so let's just push through. Jonesy had a lot of cocktails last night up here in the bay. I had to do something to keep warm. It's freezing up here. Okay, so they had the Starlink satellite dish installed on a warship. How do you bring that in when no one sees it? I'd like to know. You can't exactly put a satellite dish down your drawers. Okay, she installed it on the warship and then lied to her commanding officer to keep it secret. Oh, man, how do you... Hey, is that a satellite dish you're sneaking in? No, it's a giant plastic yarmulke, all right? Are you gonna forbid me from practicing my religion here on the ship? I didn't think so. Now, in case you don't know, they want you to know that internet access is restricted while a ship is underway to maintain bandwidth for military operations and to protect against cybersecurity threats. But, I mean, this is challenging when I'd imagine a lot of your new military personnel are made up of Gen Z, and Gen Z can't go a week or two without the TikToks. You know, they gotta complete a TikTok challenge every week, I think. Otherwise, they have to resort to their emotional support pelicans that a lot of them have. Pelicans. Pelican would be a good emotional support animal because it could bring you fish. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Like, you know, I imagine like you're experiencing some anxiety because you have to be to work at 10 a.m. You know, imagine that. You know, that's very stressful for a Gen Z type of person. So then you have an emotional support pelican, which is probably pretty soft, and then you can reach into its mouth as though you were a baby bird, and pull out a delicious fish that also can help you get through that stressful moment. You could fry it up or sushi it up. You know, fresh fish is delicious. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe it's some shrimp, a little mouthful of shrimp you get. All right, well, let's get back into the deets and find out what the military did as punishment to this military personnel that snuck a satellite dish on in her sleeping bag or whatever. I'm going to guess her career is about to be torpedoed, but let's find out. The Navy quietly relieved Grizel Marrero, a command senior chief of the combat ship USS Manchester. And surprisingly, it was only her that was punished, despite a dozen other chief petty officers using the satellite to send messages home and keep up with the news. And I imagine to buy some NVIDIA stock, you got to get on those stonks, baby. You can't trade your stonks without some internet out there. And, you know, this military personnel, they got a lot of expendable cash, you know, because their room and board's usually paid for. That's why they all drive those nice muscle cars, you know. That's how you can tell. And then they got this expendable cash. They're probably trading the stonks. You need some satellites to trade the stonks. Oh, now there's some more funny details here. Marrero apparently tried to hide this network on the ship, which she called, quote, Stinky. It was the Stinky Network. And she renamed it as a printer. So there was a printer on board called Stinky. This is also funny. And sad and alarming because this is a warship. You don't want to give away your location to other places. You don't want China out there being like, hey, look at this. We got a ship in these waters. Looks like they're trying to catch some Pokemon out there. That's strange. Let's investigate this. I'm really amazed that this woman tried to do this in the first place. Was that wrong? Should I have not done that? I mean, I got to plead ignorance here because nobody told me that this sort of activity, bringing a satellite dish, hooking up to the internet on a warship while we're on a mission was frowned upon. I've worked on a lot of ships and, people do this sort of thing all the time, don't you know? People are getting very angry about topless medical exams in schools in Japan. The testimony from two 13-year-olds is typical of the discomfort and in some cases trauma felt by children attending schools in Japan that can require boys and girls as young as 5 years old and as old as 18 to actually strip down to the waist during school health examinations. Well, let's find out what's going on here. This doesn't sound okay. Sounds like some pervy doctors making the kids take off their clothes. Take off your shirt. Wait, I thought this was an eye exam. Yeah, well, you'd be surprised how the shape of your back can influence your night vision. A lot of people don't know that, but yeah, I published a blog about that. If you want to check it out, why don't you give me your IG while you're at it and your email and phone number. Creepy doctors in Japan. Creepy doctors in Japan. Well, I mean, I shouldn't assume they're doctors. It could be the school principal doing this. Obviously, this sparked anger among the parents and campaigners who have called on education and health authorities to end the practice before the new academic year begins in April. We have here a city councilor in Matsuyama first became aware of topless school health checkups through one of her English conversation class students. Matsuyama says the girl was 13 and hadn't been able to tell her parents about what happened at the school, but Matsuyama could see that she was very troubled and had asked her what's wrong. That's when he found out that other girls, which he did then meet with, aged 12 and 13, were told to strip to the waist by visiting doctors to the school. Turns out there's no unified policy on whether children should undress or remain clothed during the checkups, with local education boards left to decide on in conjunction with visiting health professionals. Some schools require children to keep their bodies covered, while others insist that they remove their T-shirts and, among girls, their bras. Now, what's complicating this whole thing, as this issue attracts the attention of media and national politicians, is resistance from the Japan Medical Association and education officials who are reluctant to take on the influential body. In some cases, doctors, who are almost always men, have threatened to stop performing the exams if they're forced to change the procedure. Yeah, I mean, come on, what's the point of being a doctor, huh? Come on, if I can't legally see topless schoolgirls, I mean, come on, are you okay over there? This is ridiculous. Totally unnecessary. Why do you have to be topless for an examination? You don't need to be topless to examine someone's curvature of their spine. You don't need to be topless for them to do the stethoscope thing. You could do all that stuff over the clothing. There's no need for this. This is some creepy doctors. Obviously, it's Japan. Home of the perverts on the trains doing those upskirt videos. You know what I mean? You guys have heard of those stories, right? Yeah, it says these doctors insist it's impossible to, quote, conduct a proper examination if children are fully clothed. And sadly, the children are in no position to refuse the checkups. The schools are very concerned about this, and they want something to be done. How is the school powerless as well? You would think the school would have power over the incoming medical professionals. And now we have some reasons the doctors say topless exams are necessary. It's to check for signs of atopic dermatitis, heart irregularities, and other conditions. Other conditions? Okay. Sounds like they're just trying to hold on to their last bit of pleasure here at going to the schools and checking out the young schoolgirls. Yikes, man. Oh, Lucy, Lucy, I have good news and bad news. The good news is after my thorough topless investigation, your back is straight as an arrow. But now, unfortunately, you have crooked emotional trauma. So put your top back on and go see the therapist in the next room, please. This article is now interviewing, well, it already did, but I'm reading it. It interviewed a professor of infectious diseases at a university named Iwata, who was asked if there was any medical basis for insisting that children remove their clothing to undergo a proper examination, to which Iwata replied, quote, "Not that I know of. It might slightly improve the quality of the sound of the heartbeat, but I do not think this contributes to improving children's health at all." Complaints about the health exams have come from parents and children attending schools across the country, including Yokohama, where authorities say at least 16 primary schools require pupils to remove their tops and their bras. This is despite a notice issued by the Education Ministry requesting boards of education to establish a medical examination environment with consideration for the privacy and the feelings of the students. The ministry has also called for separate examination for boys and girls, the use of partitions or curtains for teachers and staff of the same sex as the children to be present, and for parents and guardians to be given advance notice that in some cases doctors may require children to raise their shirts to ensure an accurate diagnosis. Yeah, I would argue that raising the shirt is unnecessary. With that 1/25th of a millimeter of fabric is preventing you from hearing through that stethoscope, I highly doubt it. And what's worse is the kids aren't going to say no, and they're not going to complain about it. Many of them won't, because that's the kind of social pressures you have in Japan. The social pressures and the cultural constructs over there have just created an environment where girls don't feel comfortable saying no. They don't even feel comfortable reporting sexual assaults on public transportation and whatnot. It's a very sad state of affairs over there. And because, women typically haven't been allowed into the medical industry until recently, you have an overwhelming number of male doctors. So even if you were to request female doctors, you're not going to, the chances of you getting one is slim to none. What a nightmare. Lastly, I'll just say you should also check the hard drives of these doctors that have been doing these examinations over the past decade or so. Yeah. A man has to have surgery after sticking a 2-foot-long eel up his buttocks. Doctors in Vietnam reported a patient's horrific experience of having a 2-foot eel chew through his intestines after he reportedly inserted it into his behind. Surgeons were able to save the man's life and extract the eel, though not without removing part of his colon as well. Well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, bro. Everybody knows that. Let me dive into the details of this disgusting story. I apologize up top. It's probably not for the faint of heart. We have a university hospital in Hanoi, Vietnam, who reported the body horror tale. A 31-year-old man originally from India visited the emergency department with severe abdominal pain. According to the hospital, the man soon admitted that he had willingly stuck a large eel up through his anus. Well, at least he admitted it, that he put it up there. You know, these other stories I have about these, these objects that get caught in somebody's rear, they always deny it. They say, "Oh, I slipped and fell on it." Do you recall the guy who's claimed he slipped and fell on top of a large World War II military artillery shell? Military artillery shell? Did I say that right? Yeah, I think so. You can envision it. You probably don't want to envision it. Don't envision it, actually. Don't envision it, because you'll have emotional scarring by envisioning that. My point is, at least this guy admitted his stupidity. Back to the scene at the hospital, where he was quickly given imaging tests which confirmed the presence of the eel, and then they prepped him for a colonoscopy to remove it rectally, but the doctors discovered a complication. The man had also inserted a lemon into his butt, seemingly to ensure that the eel wouldn't wiggle out of his butt at any moment. A lemon, okay. Just got to put a little stopper up there. We're going to cork it with a lemon. This guy. What is wrong with people? I just can't even wrap my head around it. Oh, man. Another day where Jonesy wishes he couldn't read. Okay, back to the play-by-play of this idiot. The man's pain continued to grow worse, as you can imagine. I think the eel has teeth. This prompted the medical team to perform emergency abdominal surgery to retrieve the eel from the other end. From the other end? So pull it out his tummy or his mouth? Once the man was opened up, the team found that the hefty eel, 2 feet long and about 4 inches in diameter, had reached his abdominal cavity by biting through his colon. Can you imagine that? I'm so sorry. These details are very, very dense and shocking. It says here, thankfully, the doctors were able to pull out the eel, pop free the lemon, and close up the gaping hole in the man's colon without much trouble. Unfortunately, some waste had already spilled into the man's abdominal cavity, and to keep more of it from coming out of the sutured wound, doctors decided to remove part of the upper colon as well in that operation. Now, the hospital's report doesn't provide the man's rationale for what he did. What rationale for what he did? The guy's got a fetish, man. And if you use live creatures for your stupid fetish acts, that creature has the right to kill you on principle, in my opinion. Does anyone agree with this? I mean, at that point, it's fair game. The hospital did note that young people, in particular, will try to seek sexual sensations from unusual things inserted into their backsides. And while this may be the first instance of eel anal insertion ever encountered by the hospital's doctors, it amazingly isn't even the first case spotted in the country this year, as earlier this March, doctors at a different hospital in Vietnam reported removing a 12-inch eel from a man's abdomen, which had likely also found its way inside through the anus. I mean, more than one person's doing this per year. This is out of control, man. And if you're going to do it, don't be a rookie. That's a rookie move. Everybody knows that you put a collar around the eel and a leash. So in case you have to do an emergency pullout, you're good to go. You don't cork it up with a lemon and call it a day. What do you think's going to happen, buddy? Lastly, for this article, they interviewed the deputy director of the Center for Colon and Rectal Surgery, who added that under no circumstances should individuals attempt to stick eels or any other animals up through their anus, given the unpredictable consequences. Thank you, doctor. We needed that.
Let's rock.
Everybody's free to feel good. Just don't involve animals, please. Okay. Just keep the animals out of your orifices. Not you guys. You're reasonable individuals. And anyways, thanks for spending some time with me in the Weird AF News podcast. I don't have any announcements to make or anything like that. I'll just say that if you want to support the show, you can leave a review on Spotify or Amazon or Apple Podcasts. That's always helpful. And you can always go to weirdafnews.com where you can buy Jonesy a coffee, keep me caffeinated, or join the Patreon as well. That's a place to do it. If you want to email me some articles, that's always welcome as well. funnyjones@gmail.com. And the phone number here is 646-450-2012. Have a wonderful day and good luck with your life, man.